Picture this. It's a Friday night. Jake is 28 years old. He's got a decent job, makes around $60,000 a year, and by every visible measure, he's doing fine. He drives a nice car, he's got the latest iPhone, he eats out a few times a week, he takes a vacation every summer, he subscribes to Netflix, Spotify, Hulu, a gym he barely uses, and a meal kit service he forgot about 3 months ago. From the outside, Jake looks successful. But here's what Jake doesn't talk about at dinner parties. He has $400 in his savings account. He has about $14,000 in credit card debt. And every single month, no matter how hard he tries, his bank account somehow ends up almost exactly where it started. Empty. And the craziest part, Jake doesn't think he has a spending problem. Because everything Jake is spending money on feels completely normal. His coworkers do it. His friends do it. He sees it on Instagram every day. And that is the problem. Because the most expensive thing in America isn't a house. It's not college tuition. It's not even a car. It's the invisible cost of doing what everyone else is doing without ever stopping to ask why. Here's a question most people never ask themselves. How do you know what normal spending actually looks like? Think about it. We don't get a manual when we turn 18 that says, here's how to handle money. Instead, we learn from what we see. We watch our parents. We watch our friends. We scroll through social media. We absorb what the people around us are doing, and we quietly calibrate our own behavior to match. Psychologists call this social norming. It's the brain's shortcut for figuring out what's acceptable behavior in a group. And for most of human history, it worked really well. If everyone in your village was running from a predator, you should probably run too. You didn't have time to sit and analyze the situation. But here's the problem. That same mental shortcut, the one that says what the people around you are doing, is now running in the background every time you make a financial decision. And when the people around you are broke, following the crowd becomes catastrophically expensive.
The Federal Reserve reported that nearly 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. Not 4%, 40%. So if normal in America means what the average American is doing, then normal is actually broke. And most people don't realize they've been optimizing for normal instead of optimizing for wealth. Let's break down exactly how this works and why it's so hard to escape. It starts with something called lifestyle creep. You've probably heard of it, but let's really look at what it does to your finances over time. When Jake got his first job at 22, he made $38,000. He rented a small apartment with a roommate, drove an old Honda Civic, and cooked most of his meals at home. He was scraping by, but he was surviving. Then he got a raise, $48,000. Nice. So he moved into his own apartment. Nothing fancy, but his own place. Makes sense, right? Then another raise, $55,000. Now he upgraded the car, treated himself to nicer restaurants, started taking real vacations. Then $60,000. And somehow, even with all those raises, Jake is still broke. That's lifestyle creep. Every time your income goes up, your expenses follow it like a shadow. And the thing is, none of Jake's individual decisions felt excessive. Each upgrade seemed reasonable given his new income level. But here's the math that nobody shows you. If Jake had kept living on roughly $38,000 a year after all his raises and invested the difference, he would have been putting away around $18,000 a year by the time he hit $60,000. In 10 years, with a modest 7% return in an index fund, that's over $248,000. Instead, Jake has $400 in savings. Same income, completely different outcome. The only difference was the decision of what to do with the gap. Now, here's the psychological layer that makes this really stick. There's a concept called the hedonic treadmill. And the idea is this. Every time you get something new, a nicer apartment, a better car, a newer phone, you feel a burst of happiness. But that happiness feeds incredibly fast. Within weeks, sometimes days, the new thing just becomes your normal. And now you need the next thing to get that same feeling.
So you're constantly chasing the feeling of upgrade without ever arriving at a destination called enough.
And this isn't a character flaw, it's literally how the human brain is wired. Our brains are built to adapt to new circumstances, so we can keep scanning for threats and opportunities. Contentment, from an evolutionary standpoint, is almost dangerous. A content animal stops paying attention. But in the modern financial world, this ancient wiring is costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime, and you won't even notice it happening. Here's the deeper idea that most financial content completely misses. The wealth gap in America isn't primarily about income. It's about what people do with the gap between their income and their expenses. Wealthy people, not just billionaires, but regular people who retire comfortably at 55, they do something counterintuitive. They protect the gap. They treat the difference between what they earn and what they spend as sacred. That gap is the fuel for every investment, every asset, every future dollar that works for them while they sleep. But most people, they let the gap disappear. Not in one dramatic decision, but in 1,000 small ones. A subscription here, a nicer bottle of wine there, a car payment that pushes a little higher than it should, a vacation that went on a credit card. None of these things feel like big choices, but together they quietly consume every raise you ever get. There's a famous idea in behavioral economics called mental accounting. It's the tendency to treat money differently based on where it came from or what account it lives in. A $500 tax refund gets spent on something fun. A $500 raise gets absorbed into lifestyle. But a $500 investment, that feels like a sacrifice. The mind tricks you into thinking consumption is reward and saving is punishment. But flip that frame for a second. Every dollar you invest today is buying a small piece of your future freedom. Every dollar you spend on something that doesn't matter to you is trading future freedom for temporary comfort. The wealthy don't just earn more, they've rewired how they think about the relationship between money, time, and identity. They don't see a modest call as deprivation, they see it as 20 years of compound interest walking around on four wheels. So, what do you actually do with this? Three things. Simple ones. First, audit your normal. Pull up your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements. Don't judge, just look. Find every recurring charge, subscriptions, memberships, automatic renewals, add them up. Most people are shocked. The average American spends over $200 a month on subscriptions alone, and a significant chunk of that goes to services they barely use. This is money leaving your account silently every single month. Second, automate the gap before lifestyle can swallow it. The next time you get a raise, before you upgrade anything, automate an investment contribution in the exact amount of that raise. If you got a $200 a month raise, set up a $200 automatic transfer to a Roth IRA or brokerage account the day after you get paid. You've never lived on that money, you won't miss it, but in 20 years, you will absolutely feel it. This is called paying yourself first, and it's one of the most powerful wealth building habits that exists, not because it's complicated, but because it removes the decision entirely. Third, redefine your normal. This one is the hardest, but it's also the most important. Start noticing the financial behaviors of people whose outcomes you want, not people whose lifestyles look impressive on Instagram. Find the 45-year-old who retired early and lives comfortably. Study what they did at 28. Their normal probably looked pretty boring from the outside, but boring choices made consistently create extraordinary results. The social pressure to spend is relentless, but it's just pressure. It's not a rule. You get to decide what your normal is. Let's come back to Jake. Jake isn't a bad person. He isn't irresponsible. He's just been playing by the rules of a financial culture that was never designed to make him wifey. A culture that profits when he spends, borrows, and upgrades. A culture that calls it treating yourself when you swipe a credit card and missing out when you put money in an index fund. The most expensive thing in America isn't a mortgage or a car note. It's the unexamined belief that the way everyone around you is handling money must be the right way. Because when you look at the numbers, when you really look, normal in America is living paycheck to paycheck.
carrying debt into retirement and never quite feeling like there's enough. You don't have to do it that way. The gap between your income and your expenses, that's not just money. That's the raw material of financial freedom. The question is whether you'll protect it or whether you'll let it quietly disappear into the current of normal. And that's a choice you can make starting today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.